back, you guys. I'm Lauren Lev, marketing manager for TechOnPurpose and the host of this soon-to-be critically acclaimed blog series, Who's in Your Cloud? 21 Steps to Secure, Reliable, Trusted Technology. Before we go any further, hit that like and subscribe button down below. It really helps us out and will help you out by giving you a free cybersecurity risk assessment, which you can sign up for at who'sinyour.cloud. Because you can't know where you're going on your cybersecurity journey if you don't know where you're at. Okay, so pause right here. No, really, pause the video, press it down below, and go sign up. Who'sinyour.cloud, super simple. We'll wait for you. We'll be right here.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
All right, guys, welcome back again. Today, we're moving on to top cybersecurity best practice number 20, compliance management and reporting. The not so distant cousin of last week's topic, compliance discovery and documentation. So now that you've done your research and documented all the things, now you have to track and report your data while ensuring you're following your industry's compliance requirements. Well, what I don't know is the answer to that question. But what I do know is that I've brought along this team of sassy and savvy cyber experts to answer that question for me. So joining us back on the vlog, we have Frank DeFrisco, Director and Head of Cybersecurity Task Force at ConnectWise. Frank, that is a mouthful, but congratulations on your new title. I feel like we're below your pay grade now. So thanks for coming back.
No, so I was part of the IT Nation team, and we created the Secure group last year. We're made up of cybersecurity experts that every one of us has over 20 years of experience. And our goal was to put together training and education for our partners around cybersecurity, because we saw there was a lack of that, or very expensive. So we created some programs. We created a framework we call the MSP Plus framework, which is based off of NIST and ISO and some others, but geared towards MSPs, because there's things MSPs and small businesses can't do that the enterprise level companies can do. So we wanted to create something to guide MSPs towards having a framework. And we'll talk a lot about frameworks, and we've talked a lot about frameworks. There's a lot of frameworks. This is just another one, but we think it's a good one. But then a few months ago, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, we created these business units at ConnectWise, and one of them is cybersecurity, who is led by Raphael Marty, who's the GM of our cybersecurity business unit. And my team moved over to him. And so we couldn't say IT Nation Secure anymore because we weren't under the IT Nation. So we created what we call the Cybersecurity Task Force. And I'm working this month to define what that is, what we're going to deliver for our customers, our partners this year. So I'm meeting with a lot of different people trying to put together what we're going to do. And a lot of it's going to be around compliance. I know vendor risk management is a big piece of that. We have our partner program, education and training still going to be a piece of that. So I got a lot to do the rest of this year.
Next up, we have Chase Doling, Principal Strategist at JumpCloud. Chase, we always love having you on. And before you logged onto the recording, I was saying basically that I think you deserve the Miss Congeniality Award, because you always respond. You always let me reschedule on you 50 times. I appreciate it. But tell the audience a little bit more about who you are and what you do at JumpCloud.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm so glad to be happy and come back. And I love these discussion topics and to dive in. So I help look after a little bit more of our internal strategy within JumpCloud, but I spend most of my time externalizing that to all of our customers and partners and making sure that we can do just that, right? And we can easily add in security where they need it and make it seamless for everyone involved, because this is our new day-to-day, and so we can operate and keep all that together in one place. That's really what the name of the game is.
From Keeper, we have Director of Product Management, Zane Bond. I bet that is the first time you've ever heard that.
I have never heard that. I've never come across that. I wonder what that's a reference to.
I don't know, just sounded really good. Remind the audience what you do and what have you been up to since we've had you on last?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I'm in the product management group at Keeper Security. Keeper Security is an enterprise password vault, amongst other things, but we do just about everything you need around password security, privileged access, and things like that. And within the product group, I get the really fun job of coming up with cool things to do going forward and then telling the engineers to do all the hard work. It's really a sweet gig. I enjoy it a lot.
It's kind of like what I do to Matt. New to the vlog is Greg Vlahos, Director of Sales at Stellar Cyber. Greg, you'll do a much better job of introducing yourself to the audience. So please take it away.
Thank you, Lauren. And I'm just grateful to be part of the Savvy and Sassy group here. First time I've been included in that kind of classification. So thank you guys for having me. Been with Stellar now since January. Really, my role is just to be kind of a concierge, I would say, to our MSSP community. So just here to help serve them and grow our relationships and that together. So that's kind of my role with the company.
He is my always very sassy, sometimes pretty savvy boss, the TechOnPurpose founder, CEO, and cyber evangelist. He's a very busy man, you guys. So we're very grateful to have you on, Matt Tankersley.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you, Lauren. It's good to be here. And we're grateful for each of our cybercasts who wrote today, guys. Thank you for being here. So to all our listeners and viewers, guys, this is episode 20. We've come so very far on our mission to help educate and equip you all on the road to secure, reliable, and trusted technology. So be sure to catch all those past episodes, first chance you get. And before we dive into this next to last series topic, let's do something we haven't done before. Lauren, let's recap what we've talked about, a short list of our top Cyber 21 best security practices. But I think it's important, too, that all of our audience listening to this later episode and some of the team that hasn't been with us understands kind of what we've developed here in our strategy of achieving secure, reliable, trusted technology through these best 21 security practices. So let's start at number one. I'll run through this quickly, right? Security awareness training. If 97% of compromises are the result of end user error, why would you not be doing the simplest of best practices? Train your team. It's easier than you think, and it's not expensive. Dark web monitoring. Number two, know when your credentials are at risk before threat actors have time to use them and dwell in your network. Okay? Number three, complex passwords and password management. Enter Keeper. Number four, identity and access management, including SSO and MFA. Guys, that's not an option. And welcome back, JumpCloud, one of our favorite IAM platforms. Number five, security updates and patch management. We do this stuff in our sleep. Let TechOnPurpose help you with that. Number six, managed endpoint security. It's not just about antivirus, but it is the basic building block for securing your devices. Number seven, DNS and web filtering security. Number eight, it goes by many names and definitions, but what will it mean for your company? Zero trust. That's a big buzzword in the industry and a lot going on right there. Number nine, you'll have to forgive me, Mr. Ivan Painter, who will certainly be listening, who's not absent. Don't click shit. How do you protect yourself here, right? Email and phishing protection. We got to have that, right? Number 10, cloud to SaaS backup. Keep that email, OneDrive, and Google Drive incrementally backed up so you can rapidly recover missing or compromised data. Number 11, data encryption is generally free and inexpensive. It's not hard. Number 12, mobile device management. Allow access from users to critical systems only on the devices you authorize and from the locations you permit. Number 13, advanced threat protection at the network edge. This is your firewall, but a little bit of steroids there, right? Number 14, wireless security. Absolutely one of the most exploited attack vectors at work, at home, at the coffee shop, and abroad. How do you secure this? We'd like to help you with that. Number 15, secure remote access. How do you protect your remotely accessed data and systems from the compromised Wi-Fi you just connected to at Starbucks? Number 16, server backups and BCDR. Same as cloud SaaS data, but even more important, can you instantly recover data and systems in the event of compromise or hardware failure? Managed or extended detection and response. XDR helps us to correlate data from all users, systems, devices, networks, and locations to proactively identify and remediate risk and cyber attacks. Thank you, Stellar Cyber, for being here. Number 18, network vulnerability and penetration testing. How do you tell if top Cyber 21 best security practices 1 through 17 are working? Let's do some testing, right? Number, what do we got? 19, compliance, discovery, and documentation. How will you get your ducks in a row to ensure you and your vendors are compliant with regulatory requirements? And today, number 20, compliance, reporting, and management. Lastly, don't forget, next week we'll talk about the final and vital topic of cyber risk insurance. Guys, that was a mouthful. Here's the moral of the story. There is zero silver bullet in cybersecurity. It takes a comprehensive action plan, a prioritized technology and solutions to effectively mitigate your risk and keep your company from being just another headline tragedy story. Don't delay, get it right. Get your free risk assessment today by visiting who'sinyour.cloud. We'll equip you with your A to Z cybersecurity plan. And that's it. I'm done. Let's get this going, Lauren. Frank, welcome back. Let's talk compliance, reporting, and management. Cybersecurity best practices go.
We at ConnectWise, we're a member of the Shared Assessment organization where we use their tool. It's called a SIG, and it's an ongoing implementation where we can update and add to our compliance. And so it's constantly being tracked and monitored, because we also need to report to our partners who ask us, you know, what are you doing for compliance? So our main focus has been SOC 2 over the last years. We're also get a HIPAA attestation every day, and we're working towards CMMC and ISO 27001 over the next couple of years, because we take compliance seriously. And one thing we did, and I did this at the company that I was working with, is created a trust site on our page. So our prospects or people looking at us can go to our page and see what we're doing. And we make it open and aware for everybody to be able to see that.
Frank, thanks. That's a great introduction to the topic, and we're going to pass that ball around the horn a little bit. I want us to traditional format here, and that was a great segue. Apologies. But we want to talk about the issue, which is exactly what Frank just did. What is reporting and management? And why is reporting and management? And potentially, what's the risk of not doing this correctly? I think that's important for our listeners to understand. And then we're going to talk more specifically about the particular approaches that both of your, or all of your companies, both is the wrong word, all of your companies take. So it's sort of a round two. And Lauren, who's next in our Hollywood Squares today?
We will go to Chase. Chase, tell us why compliance management and reporting is important and why our listeners should even be paying attention.
It's important because it also marks kind of several different milestones as terms of an organization. And so you can almost think of it as, you know, starting at 10 people, right? And so it's like, there might be a little too much overhead, but security is really important because you're just starting out. But then as you continue to grow, there's other milestones in terms of, are you growing the team? Are you getting funding? All of these other different pieces. And every time you go through that, there's these challenges that organizations say, like, I promise, see, like, we're doing all the things. And so it's just that external validation to go through that. But what it also does is acts as a forcing function, because a lot of times people have a sense of what the technology pieces are, but they also don't have a sense of how they're all tied together, right? So for example, we host in terms of identities and devices and securing those, but it's also important to link those pieces and say, yeah, that data on that managed device is now encrypted. Now we're also bringing that into having multi-factor across there. So and so having that kind of combined approach and understanding the layers that it's involved helps the team come to a good understanding of what can we take on, what type of investments can we have to help mature the organization and kind of up level the infrastructure they have, right? Because this might be competing against a couple other priorities in terms of, you know, what security practices we need to implement, all these other pieces, but understanding what the goalpost is, right, and how to get there as an organization is really important to understand from the beginning, because it really helps set you up to scale within the growth and really kind of become a contender in any industry that you're operating in, really.
Greg, that's a perfect segue, because I was going to say, right, we're talking a lot about the what and why of reporting and management. And sometimes when we use the word compliance, we start thinking really quickly that, well, I'm not HIPAA compliant, right? I'm not a healthcare provider, or, I don't have to have these compliances. I don't have to report to the government. The reality is more and more the two factors of insurance, your insurance companies are starting to demand that if they're going to insure you, you've got to have a lot of these compliant things in place that otherwise, you might not want to have. And the second thing is I think we heard about this in one of our last episodes. We'll certainly hear about it in the cyber risk insurance one, right? Is regardless of whether you are regulatorily required to follow any kind of framework, if you do have any kind of compromise, your documentation that you have around that, these are the key things. We talked about documentation last week, right? These are the things that are going to save your backside when you start having to work through legal hoops, right? And so we're going to turn it over to Greg. Greg, I'm confident that Pinkerton's doesn't have to follow. Pinkerton's Barbecue down in Houston that you level up, they don't have any compliance requirements to follow theoretically, other than is their barbecue is tastier than the guy down the street, right?
I don't think they will at the moment, but if they keep growing the way they're growing, they'll get to a point where they'll fall into some category, right? I think there's a general understanding, at least in the US, because I think until Europe kind of came out with their compliance, we were kind of leading the way here on industry standards for compliance. Mostly because there's an understanding that cybersecurity is a real risk to our economy and to our citizens as consumers. And so the government, they've got a couple of ways that they can take action. One is to create taxes. We could tax the companies that are doing a poor job with security. We could subsidize the ones that are doing a good job with security. They've chosen to regulate as their means of impacting this threat. Problem is as you mentioned, it's very siloed, right? There's different industries that compliance fall under, and there isn't a general one for all business across there at this time. And because it's siloed, some industries are not going to be compliant yet. I'm confident that most businesses, as data privacies get stronger and different areas get stronger, will all fall under that. But the question was compliance reporting. So now that if we are in those categories and we have to create compliance reporting and management, what does that give it? Well, auditors. So being able to report on how you're compliant, how your data is stored, what security measurements are in place. At least you keep it that regulation that the government, that silent hand that they have, you're able to show and demonstrate to them that you're meeting those checkboxes. Insurance, right now, to get cyber and security insurance, which is one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing insurance vertical right now, they're going to require that you can demonstrate that you're meeting compliance, and how are you securing, and what places do you have, what measures in place. And to do that, you need some kind of tool that takes the aggregation of all the actions you're taking and can report on them. And then forensics, right? God forbid something goes wrong and you need to demonstrate, you need to have a background of what actions have been taking places, and forensics of your data logs and storage. From there, the last thing that having that management tool capability then can pivot you from a place of checkbox security and pivot you into a proactive, where you're correlating, you're actually taking a strategy towards protecting yourself and your data.
Mr. Bond, you shall address.
There we go.
What is your 2 cents?
No, I think it really ties into a lot of the similar topics that just got brought up here, right? So compliance frameworks themselves, they're kind of like the set of standards that raises all the boats in the harbor, right? Like across a particular industry, like for PCI, anyone taking credit cards, like you must have this minimum set of things. You must you must be like this responsible with credit cards to take them, or if you're publicly traded, you have SOX compliance, or if you have like medical data, you get HIPAA, right? So the frameworks themselves try and set that bar to just say you must be at least this secure or this good with data or have this much documentation. So I think from a perspective of companies buying solutions or at least trusting other vendors to work with their data, having these various certifications and adherence to compliances just at least gives them a certain amount of trust. Like, oh wow, you've got your SOC 2 compliance, so I know you've at least documented what happens if something bad happens, right? So From an industry perspective, it's kind of good. Then individual frameworks, they vary wildly. Some are really generalized and leave a lot up to interpretation. Some of them are a lot more prescriptive. And as long as the frameworks themselves have some room to evolve, like PCI continually comes up with updates and revisions. It's a nightmare for auditors and people handling and processing credit card stuff, but it really just allows, as the cybersecurity landscape evolves, as threats and defenses evolve, like at least those things will continue raising it there. On the reporting side, man, it's so many times it's kind of an afterthought. It's like, all right, we've got this thing, it does this cool stuff, it protects us, and yeah, we'll get to the reporting. And I find that's very often like a completely backwards way to think about it. When you're implementing a solution, a product, a goal, or adhering to a compliance framework, think about what you want the output to be. Like, what do you want the report to look like? Do you want like the list of all your checkboxes? Do you want this? If you understand what the output looks like and you kind of define that up front, like I want to be able to say that I'm good across all these frameworks and have this, then it kind of, you work backwards from that to build the business process and implement the business process to accurately communicate that. We find so many times, especially when like compliance is just, it's tough. There's so many things you have to do. It's this endless list. And that's why you have products that help you and solutions and auditors and all that. But understanding what the output is really helps you work towards that. So I think that's the initial high levels approach to that.
Good stuff, Zane. Thanks for that, Lauren. I think if I'm a listener right now and I have no clue about how to do reporting in management, I don't know that we're going to answer that question for them in this episode, but hopefully we're going to give them the information they need to get started on that journey. And I think that each of the folks that are with us today have tools that help in that documentation, discovery, and reporting process. And I think as we shift gears in the second part of our episode here, I'd like to hear a little bit more about how your teams are intentionally designing your products to be able to report against these compliance issues that insurance companies might be asking us for, that the government might be asking us for through HIPAA compliance. And I do want to give a plug for a few of our partners who aren't here today, that this is what they do. They build platforms that procure and allow you to keep the documentation in one place, as Frank was talking about, and others, and report year after year and month after month about your compliances. So we've got our friends over at OneTrust Pro. I think they've been on an episode with us. We have our folks at Cyber Trust Alliance over in Austin. They have a great platform that has all these metrics and analytics. And so none of those tools work without these tools right here that we've got on this episode, which is where all this data comes from, guys. So, Lauren, I'm not sure what you were thinking about next, but I'd say let's make sure everybody's helping us understand in our last round, what are the tools and intentions that your company has to meet this need? Where would you like to go first, Lauren?
Chase, let's go to you first. What products and methodologies does JumpCloud have to keep users safe and secure through compliance management and reporting?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of compliance is really kind of answering the question, who had access to what and what did they do? The good news is, being a open directory platform that we're also managing devices and identities and all those access points, is we are able then to collect all of those different pieces into one area. So it's really helpful for folks to understand, right, when they're joining an organization, where do they start, which applications they should have access to, when they're opening up their device for the first time, what types of privileges, right? Should we grant them sudo or not? Or should we, is there elevated privileges we need to think about having that person? But then also kind of behind the scenes of, as that's happening live, tracking what that looks like, and then making sure that all of those permission sets are granted. And so that's kind of the beauty of JumpCloud, is we're able to grab all of those different types of technology and inputs that are required for compliance, right? So like, are those drives in diskette? Is USB blocked? Do we have lock screens set up? Do we have multi-factor authentication on all resources, some resources, depending what that looks like, network security? all of those different pieces of just kind of getting your job done and thinking about all those different access points, that's really the power of kind of bringing that in, because we're able to have our fingers across all of those different areas. So we're able to put it into one dashboard, one essentially export, right? You can pull out and say, look, here's the running log of everything that's happened across my organization, and we don't have to spend mind-numbing amounts, right, kind of going from system to system to system and try to piece together what should be a good security posture picture.
Love that. And then you're doing a great job of curating all that data in one place. And then how do you correlate that data into intelligence that can help you to do threat hunting and things of that nature? And that's where our friends at Stellar Cyber that we've had the pleasure of working with in recent days work. In fact, I had a light bulb, and this is one of the beautiful parts about what we do, Lauren, working with so many vendors and partners, is we get to see where there are synergies. But Greg, we need to be working on a connector to Jump Cloud. In fact, we do a lot of Jump Cloud, and there's a whole lot of intelligence coming from that platform that will allow tools like yours and partners like us who use your tools to curate more intelligence through one source.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. All right, Lauren, where are we going next? Great job, Chase.
Perfect segue. Let's take it over to Greg.
All right.
So compliance and reporting management, how do we help? OpenXDR is exactly that. So OpenXDR means data source everything. So we will create a connector, as Matt just requested, for any software, any product out there to get into our platform. We go a step further. So just getting the data in there is going to help you with all that. We've got CAN reporting for the major compliances out there. If you fall into more of an obscure one, I'd call Matt up and ask him to create one in our platform, which you can do. But taking it from there and actually then doing something with all that data centralized, that's where we add value on top of just meeting checkboxes, right? Our whole goal is to simplify the threat hunting, as it was just alluded to before, with all that data. So we run it all, we normalize all that data into one language. It's going to come before it gets to those connectors in many different formats. We use Interflow as the word we use for it. And once it's in that format, we're going to run it through a gauntlet of AI and machine learning that some of the brightest people in the world have put together here, and start taking these siloed information and connecting the dots for you. And when we start connecting these dots, this is going to give you real-time, high fidelity, high efficacy, information that's going to put you in a position to take action in real time, in a meaningful amount of time, to limit any kind of exposure or damage that your business and reputation and your consumers information or data or credit cards or healthcare, whatever industry you may be in, from getting out there. And using these other products that we mentioned, with these connectors to block these actors, or to report, or to quarantine, or to isolate them from the network. All of this from collecting, reporting, correlating, and taking action, all into one platform and all in real time for you. So that's kind of how we take it from a compliance and reporting, and then to a proactive step on your behalf.
One point that both Chase and Greg brought up, which I think is really important for people like me who are a little bit of our target audience, us low men on the totem pole who are still trying to wrap our heads around the acronyms, and we're still on cybersecurity awareness training. But the KISS rule, keep it simple, stupid. The simpler it is, the more likely you're going to be able to do it. And it seems like, to me, from what I gathered, that both Jump Cloud and Stellar Cyber Solutions keep it KISS, keep it simple, stupid. So Zane, what is Keeper's approach?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So with Keeper, we're effectively, a point solution that works within the larger ecosystem of all the cybersecurity you have. We do everything related to password security, access, privileged access, connecting to targets. So obviously, our solution generates all the telemetry you need from a compliance perspective around what you want. But we specifically have a compliance reports module that's like, hey, for this framework, here's your compliance posture, whatever you need. And I think that's something that's really helpful is a lot of times, even if your company has to adhere to some compliance framework, you're not experts in it. You have no idea. There's like 8,000 things on a checklist. You're like, yeah, we take credit cards. We have enough transactions that we have to be PCI compliant. But other than the words PCI, I got no idea. So if the solutions you're purchasing at least have some awareness of compliance or alerting built into it, it can really help you satisfy those needs a little better. And that's really about, one of the nice things, at least from our perspective, every framework somewhere in the beginning, like sections 1 or 2 is don't be dumb with passwords. Like that's just like table stakes for everything. Like don't use defaults, don't reuse them, understand who has access, audit who actually used their access, all that stuff. So we have the reporting module that helps facilitate that, but we've also allowed our customers to set up like real-time alerts, like in Slack or whatever, for possible compliance violations or possible company policy violations. And this allows you to have somebody do an evaluation of, sharing these, PCI prod system passwords isn't necessarily a risk, isn't necessarily a problem, but it's potentially. So let's send that out. And it allows you to kind of like do the alerts as it occurs. So it's not an, oh crap, an auditor's here. Let's go through 8,000 pages of stuff. It's as it occurs, like, hey, this thing was shared. Is everybody okay with it? And we try and encourage people to think of this more as like a process, something that evolves throughout the year, instead of let's just wait and see if we get audited, and then everybody runs around with their heads cut off and tries to figure out what to do.
Not the best approach.
Yeah.
Always better to be proactive rather than reactive.
Well, we're big Keeper fans. We obviously work with one of your larger competitors, LastPass, quite a bit, and I know if you look at my machine right now and I'm sharing my screen, you're going to see a Keeper icon. So we're grateful for your commitment to developing the reporting capabilities that you have to help keep our clients secure and compliant. So
I love it.
you.
Yeah, it's one of the fun things about password security is like it's foundational to everything. Like, just if you're good with that, you can eliminate so many potential risks and cyber threats. So
yeah,
be smart with passwords.
Frank's fancy new title, it tells us that he's the right guy to be closing out this topic today. And, he's got so much history, experience, and oversight into all of these areas that we've talked about, and all of the many tools that, ConnectWise equips MSPs like us to serve clients like you that are listening, to keep you secure, reliable, and trusted. And we haven't said it once, we'll say it again. The fact that we're able to do the risk assessments that we do is because of the platforms that Frank and his team have brought us. So don't forget, go get your free risk assessment and know that Frank's team's behind that, empowering us to be able to do that. So, Frank, tell us a little bit more about how ConnectWise is enabling the success journey for compliance reporting and management.
Yes, I think we don't necessarily have a product for compliance tracking. We're focused more on making sure our products are compliant with multiple frameworks. And we announced at our Secure conference earlier this month a partnership with a company called Control Case, who is a compliance auditor and does verified assessments. And they have integrations to our products. So if you're using Manage, Control, and Automate, they can go in there and pull out the controls to meet different frameworks. So whether it's HIPAA or NIST or whatever, they can show you, because you're using ConnectWise products, you're this far along in your complete compliance with these different frameworks. And the cool thing is then they can create tasks within Manage for you to go do to get the rest of the way to that compliance. So it's more kind of a monitoring and auditing of the products you're using. They're working on more integrations. They're always, up for building other integrations so that they can, and they also inherit like the controls, because we use AWS, right? So they inherit controls in AWS and check the box that because you're using AWS, you meet these controls, or Azure or whatever, Active Directory. And so it's pretty cool. We also have, our new ConnectWise risk assessment tool, which goes back to Chase's point, knowing who's doing what and who's accessing what, and user behavior. So users that have never logged in, users haven't logged in 90 days, things like that. We can report on all that. And then finally, I think we bring it all back to, we acquired BrightGauge within the last year, and they're really working on more and more integration so that you can build that dashboard. And we're offering dashboards out of the box, and then ways for you, I think like Greg said, to go in and customize what it is you want to see. So pulling all that data into one place, and showing it on a dashboard so that you have one view and you can report that to your executives, to your customers, whoever might need to see that.
Well, we couldn't do what we do all day, every day without each of your products. We're so grateful for you. We use all four of you, and Stellar Cyber is the newest in our portfolio. We're pretty excited about getting underway with that team. And y'all have already done a phenomenal job of showing flexibility and working with our endpoint providers where you may have had some things that weren't there. Your team's already working to get those in place. And so today's topic, guys, it was reporting and management. And as you can tell, unless you have the right tools, you've got nothing to report in the first place. So we're here to equip you with the right tools. We also have the partners that can have these platforms that help you curate and document and discover these compliance requirements, pulling them in from all of these different tools and systems so you can make your insurance companies happy, you can make the government happy, and hopefully no attorneys ever. You don't ever have to keep those guys happy. But we're here to help you. And I guess, Lauren, let's maybe final thoughts on reporting management. We can let Frank get his happy hour and you can close us out. Does anybody have any last words they want to say?
Any final thoughts? Speak
Only
now
one.
or forever hold your peace.
I did have some statistics from earlier that I never shared. If you want to hear some statistics.
Yeah.
We always like numbers, right?
That's right.
Yeah, y'all
So
do.
these come from the ACA compliance group, the top 5 risk and compliance functions that can benefit from technology. Vendor oversight, 54% of the people said that technology can help with their vendor oversight. Marketing reviews, compliance policy, and activity tracking, at 41%. Trade surveillance, so knowing what your vendors, if they're doing business with companies outside of the United States, what are they doing? That's important to know because they might be sanctioned companies that they're doing business with. And obviously regulatory requirement, technology helps with that. But what I thought was really neat is 44% of firms say they are being asked for proof of cybersecurity as part of RFPs. So that goes back to when I talked about having to do those hundreds of security questionnaires every time we have a new customer or new product. And then organizations lose an average of $4 million in revenue due to a single non-compliance event. So if you're not monitoring your compliance and you have an event, and like we talked about, if it's not documented, if you don't have that policy and procedure and stuff in place, you're just going to get dinged for it even more. Couple more, 45% increase in the cost of non-compliance since 2011. So the cost of not doing this is just costing companies more and more. And these last two, 50% of organizations said they spend 6 to 10% of their revenue on compliance cost. So you got to budget for it. You have to know it's there, because as this last one, U.S. businesses spend an average of $10,000 per employee on regulatory costs. So that goes to security awareness training and everything else that goes along with that. So I have all the references if you guys need them to publish that. They come from Thomson Reuters, the ACA compliance group, and a couple others. So I just thought that was pretty interesting and didn't get to mention that earlier.
All right, guys. Any other final thoughts, Zane?
Really, I think the biggest thing is, compliance, while it is sometimes a pain to be compliant, like the spirit and the goal behind it is it's really that the thing that raises all boats in the harbor, like get a consistent minimum set of security controls for everybody. And compliance oftentimes isn't like the pinnacle of security, right? It's that minimum set. So, when you're trying to be compliant, realize that, the spirit behind it's good and the paperwork sucks. But, you still have to do it. Many times it's just not optional. And from there, it's, you can always do better than the compliance framework requires. You just can't do worse.
Yeah. And I think that's pretty synonymous with something that everybody else has said, right? And don't try to do this on your own. Reach out to partners like TechOnPurpose and all these folks. You need to make great barbecue like you make great barbecue, and you need to be a CPA, and you need to do all the things that you do. You don't need to be an IT person. You definitely don't want to deal with this compliance stuff. That's good stuff, Zane. Greg, last thoughts?
Yeah, I just think a lot of great points by everyone. Really enjoyed the savviness. Could have used a little bit more sassiness on this podcast.
Come on.
Where were you at, Greg? Where were you at?
I know. I'll take
the dog was trying to jump in there.
I'll take responsibility for that one. My thoughts are just, business landscape is changing. Where we conduct business, the borders change, our physical where we host things, the platform, the technology, it's all just evolving. Trying to stay up on am I so compliant? Am I meeting those standards as we constantly are flexible and moving? And that's a great thing about small business. We're agile businesses. Don't try to do it all yourself. Leverage a partner, leverage an expert, reach out to like Matt or any of these guys. And don't try to take it all on yourself, because we're gonna miss something. It's not what we wake up and think about, as business owners out there. So, outsource that to someone who does wake up every day thinking about it, and don't try to do it yourself.
There you go.
Hey, Matt, and real quick on that point, one of the other stats I had is, and you can edit this back in, Thomson Reuters cost of compliance report in 2021 said 34% of organizations outsource some or all their compliance functionality.
Wow.
So like you said, you can't do it yourself. You gotta get help.
Yeah, I bet that's one of those that's going to continue to grow year over year as well, especially as we're getting more and more compliancy requirements and that sort of thing. So, Chase, it looks like you've got final thoughts. By the way, I think I'm on deck to be at your internal event in Colorado coming up.
Yeah, that's right. We're excited to have you come down this way in reverse roles a little bit.
There you go.
But I think just to help close it out, I think one of the pieces we talked about is like, compliance, you gotta do it. You gotta, I'd flip that around. And actually, a lot of organizations like doing business with secure companies, right? And so even though it might feel like a drag on the organization, actually helps open up your own pipeline and conversations and say, hey, like I can be a trusted advisor to you. And so like, don't discount the fact that it will help accelerate your own sales and revenue cycles, right? Regardless of what kind of company you're in, or at least continue to establish trust within your existing customer base. To help reduce churn a little bit, right? So as we start to head into some other macroeconomic headwinds, it's always good to kind of have that riding alongside with you and kind of help those conversations. So use it to your advantage.
I love that. Chase, that was perfect ending. You put the cherry on top of the topic and put a really positive spin on what can be a really frustrating topic. So nice work. People want to do business with people who are secure and compliant. I love that. Great job. Thanks to everybody. Lauren, you want to close this out?
Yes, to start a free trial from any of our solution partners here today, send an email to freetrial@who'sinyour.cloud. And we know you've already done this because you paused the video in the beginning and signed up, but now's the time to tell your friends, tell your family, tell your mom, tell your sister to sign up for our free cybersecurity risk assessment at who'sinyour.cloud. Next week, we're finishing off the Who's in Your Cloud series with cyber risk insurance. And I must say, we've pretty much saved the best for last because it's definitely one of our best. So you don't want to miss it. Yeah. Join us here next week to help make sure your cybersecurity is secure, reliable, trusted, and insured.
There you go.
See y'all next time. Thanks, everybody.
See you, everybody. Thank you so much.